At 7. This is the CBS Evening News. Bob Schieffer reporting. Good evening. A possible complication today on the eve of the Soviet-American summit in Moscow. White House Chief of Staff Howard Baker left Washington tonight carrying the official copies of the Intermediate Range Missile Treaty that the Senate ratified yesterday. No problems on that front, but an unexpected Soviet announcement on Afghanistan could pose a problem. Dan Rather is heading up our coverage in Moscow, of course, and for that we go to him. Dan?
Bob, thanks. Just hours before Ronald Reagan's arrival inside the Kremlin, there is a Soviet pre-summit mini surprise. The Soviets tonight are threatening to halt troop withdrawals from Afghanistan. The Soviet Foreign Ministry says aid to Afghan rebels from neighboring Pakistan must stop. Now, the Soviets don't mention the U.S. by name, but the U.S. does use Pakistan to funnel aid to Afghan rebels. A more positive Soviet note today on arms control. The Soviet Presidium gave final approval to the Reagan-Gorbachev medium-range missile deal reached at the December summit in Washington. That Presidium session was shown live here, something rarely done, and something else rare for Soviet families to watch on Saturday night Soviet TV or on any night, an interview with President Reagan.
Now, I recognize that one country can't dictate to another as to how they must run their own affairs, and maybe some of the things that we'll talk about are things that I believe maybe we could be, based on our own experience, be helpful. For example, among human rights.
A direct to the Soviet people TV appearance was one of the things Mr. Reagan wanted most out of the Moscow summit. The president himself arrives here inside the Kremlin tomorrow. That interview was done in Washington. Tonight's Soviet curveball and hardball about Afghanistan came as Mr. Reagan completed his final prepping in Finland for the summit. White House correspondent Terrence Smith is there.
Hello, Nancy.
Hi. As Nancy Reagan strolled outside their Helsinki guest house, the president spent 3 hours inside in final pre-summit briefings with his top national security aides.
I think he is looking forward to tomorrow.
If there is tension on the eve of the summit, it is still focused on the human rights issue. In his weekly radio address, pre-recorded and broadcast today, the president again cited Soviet shortcomings on human rights. And a senior State Department official made it clear that Mr. Reagan intends to keep the pressure on.
That the lead topic, the prime topic, beginning Sunday evening, the agenda item number 1 will be human rights.
In fact, much of the president's public schedule in Moscow is designed to highlight his calls for greater Soviet freedom of expression and religious worship, meetings with priests, writers, and dissidents.
We have made a point of trying to make sure that the president gets a chance to see a broad spectrum of people throughout the 4 days that he is in the Soviet Union.
All but overshadowed so far has been the issue of arms control. In fact, both sides have been downplaying expectations on that front. But today, General Powell said the U.S. will make new proposals in Moscow for an agreement to reduce strategic nuclear weapons.
We believe progress can be made at this meeting, and we believe that during the remaining months of the administration, additional progress can be made so that there is an opportunity to complete the work in President Reagan's term.
Progress on arms control may well come out of the formal Reagan-Gorbachev meetings in Moscow. But there's almost a separate summit agenda starting tomorrow, the one between the U.S. president and the Soviet people. And in that summit, the contentious human rights issues are clearly center stage. Terrence Smith, CBS News, with the president in Helsinki.
Unusual eve of the summit demonstration today, not far from the Kremlin. A group demanding that the reforms of Gorbachev's glasnost be guaranteed and permanent, including Gorbachev's offer to put limits on his own term in office. This is a demonstration that probably would have been stopped in its tracks any other time. Wyatt Andrews reports on pushing the limits of tolerance in the streets of Moscow.
The demonstration began with about 30 supporters, and then, like the March of the Pied Piper, it more than doubled in size as surprised onlookers joined in. By the time they stopped for speeches, there was a crowd of around 200. The issue here, a demand that the Communist Party start to hold open elections for top jobs inside the party. This was no official demonstration. This is the new politics in the Soviet Union. Exactly what Mikhail Gorbachev, whether he likes it or not, has stirred up.
Какие можно предложить ей демократические меры?
We want it by democratic methods. We want honest elections, now. This proposal's disappointing. The idea is good, but it's far too general.
Gorbachev will propose elections within the Communist Party at an extraordinary convention of the party late next month. This demonstration demands a faster pace of change from that proposed by Gorbachev, and because of that, probably would have been stopped at any other time. Today, there are hundreds of newsmen in town. The militia are on their best behavior, and the demonstrators took advantage of that. The demonstration showed some of Gorbachev's opposition from the left, disgruntled workers who want completely free elections right away.
The deputies of the Moscow Council don't understand what they are doing. In fact, they don't do anything at all.
But the demo also drew out the conservative opposition. An old veteran wagged his cane at the young crowd, saying he didn't fight a war for some reformist democracy. He's yelling, why not just raise white flags in surrender? President Reagan arrives tomorrow, and in Moscow, that is the talk of the town. But for Gorbachev, the demonstration is still a reminder of the political hornet's nest he faces when the president goes home. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, Moscow.
The summit officially begins tomorrow when President Reagan arrives in Moscow. Dan Rather's been there all week. And Dan, I want to go back to this business on Afghanistan, this announcement that the Soviets made tonight. What do you make of this?
Hard to know, Bob. It's possible, but perhaps even probable, that what's happening here is that Gorbachev, number one, wants to push back a little. Feeling President Reagan pushed him a bit in that speech made from Finland and a little bit in the interview. Number two, that both of these leaders are playing what the pool players call shape. That is, playing for position, getting themselves in the right position for the summit. It's also conceivable, the suspected admittedly so, but it's conceivable that Gorbachev may offer something at the summit. For example, beginnings of a deal to get Cuban troops out of Angola or something of that sort. And in order to make that kind of offer, he had to sort of push at President Reagan. That's the best guess here.
Another thing I wanted to ask you about, I was particularly struck yesterday when Soviet citizens would walk right up to CBS reporters and talk about problems in their country, problems they were having in department stores. There really does seem to be a new openness there. Do you sense that?
No question about it, Bob, and it's increased even since last May when we were here for the CBS News program 7 days in May. The Soviet people, not since the Bolshevik Revolution, have they ever been able to talk this openly. Perhaps never in their history have they been able to criticize with their own talk their leadership as they're doing now. Such things as openly criticizing the KGB and talking about corruption and the need for reform in the military. This is real. Now, how long it lasts, how deep it cuts, and how wide it goes in the society is the question in front of us, and what makes being in Moscow right now such an exciting and interesting time.
One other question, Dan. What does this summit mean for Gorbachev?
He needs it, Bob. What it means for him would be hard to overstate in the sense that he has in Moscow the man seen by the Soviets as the great red baiter, the man who called this country the evil empire. And for Gorbachev to produce him friendly, handshaking, deal-making Ronald Reagan increases Gorbachev's authority, and he needs that badly because in just a few weeks he faces his own Soviet Communist Party conference, the first one since 1941, which will go a long way to determining how fast and how far Gorbachev can go with his reforms, and indeed, perhaps, how long he survives.
Thank you, Dan. Well, coming up next on tonight's CBS Evening News, Syrian troops tighten their grip on Beirut hostage territory, and then later on we'll go back to Moscow, where the Soviets are taking a swing at an American game.
This house is just lovely, but to the Stevens, it's so much more. They planned the future next to that fireplace, celebrated holidays full of laughter in this dining room, and whispered countless bedtime stories right here. This is where their heart is. This is their home. That's why only one paint was ever good enough. Benjamin Moore. They wouldn't settle for anything less. Would you?
When something means so much, see your Benjamin Moore dealer.
Dentuaries. Now everybody's calling me the fresh mouth. thanks to Super Strength Polidin Green. It's got a minty mouthwash ingredient, so it freshens up dentures as it cleans tough stains. Try Super Strength Polidin Green, the mouth-freshening clean. Ah.
When you buy Corning prescription lenses that change, it's like getting free light tints, free medium tints, dark tints, and a range of free sunglasses all in one. Corning lenses that change, the only eyeglasses you'll ever need.
Syria poured more soldiers into South Beirut today to ensure that fighting between rival Shiite Muslim factions does not erupt again. Another aim is to apply pressure that could free hostages believed to be held somewhere in the area. Bill McLaughlin reports.
Syrian troops, heavily armed with Soviet weaponry, penetrated deeper into Beirut's southern slums today. They're now said to be near the Hezbollah stronghold, an area where it is believed many of the 9 American hostages are being held. Hundreds died in the 3 weeks of fighting between the fanatically pro-Iranian Hezbollah and Syria's local allies, the Amal movement. But even though Syrian troops may get near the hostages, they won't attempt to free them by military force. Reliable sources say Syria has told Washington that would only get them killed. The sources add that Iran, which ultimately controls the fate of the hostages, still believes that in this U.S. presidential year, it can get a big ransom for the Americans. Syria's soldiers were warmly welcomed by the local population. They were trapped in the middle of the battle, enduring around-the-clock pounding. The Syrians are dismantling roadblocks, enforcing a semblance of law and order, trying to help these civilians get back to something like a normal life. Syria's main objective now is not to free the hostages. It needs to reassert its power throughout South Beirut, which Iran was in the process of turning into a mini-Islamic revolutionary state loyal to the Ayatollah. Iran will try to hang on to this foothold in Lebanon, observers say, and more battles may lie ahead. Bill McLaughlin, CBS News, London.
The Soviet-backed Afghan government today released a French journalist jailed 9 months ago on spying charges. The journalist said he believed his release was prompted in part by the Moscow summit. Congress is in recess this holiday weekend, but when the House goes back into session, it will be under the shadow of new problems between the Republicans and the Democrats, problems which are focusing now on Speaker Jim Wright. Deborah Potter reports.
And what's going on here, if they want better laws, if they want a better life, the American people must have a better house.
It was a rare public show of Republican discontent. Leaders of the minority party took to the House floor this week to accuse the Democrats of abusing their power.
The American people deserve something better of the representative branch. And the Democratic Party, the majority party, has controlled this House for 34 years.
The Republicans say the Democrats are bending the rules to push their agenda. But longtime Congress watchers say that's par for the course.
When the Republicans controlled the House, they did essentially the same things. The majority party rules as efficiently as they can in order to get a program through.
But Republican frustration has hit a new high under Jim Wright, now in his second year as Speaker.
There is a style, a prickliness, an aggressiveness, an autocraticness about the way Jim does business that makes people very uncomfortable.
He has been a very active speaker, and he has had the feeling that there's a program and an agenda which he thinks should be considered, and he's worked hard to bring it before the House. And in some cases, that's caused opposition.
The Civil War spread to a new battleground this week as more than 70 Republicans called on the House Ethics Committee to investigate Wright.
As the questions raised against the Speaker are serious, it is imperative that this cloud no longer hang over this great institution.
The public interest group Common Cause also has called for an investigation of Wright based on reports that he made inflated royalties from the sale of this book and that he misused his influence to help troubled savings and loans in his home state of Texas. The Speaker denies any unethical conduct. The Republicans say they just want to clear the air, but it's also clear they think they found a good political issue, a way to respond to questions from Democrats about Reagan administration ethics. Still, Republican bitterness over what they call Speaker Wright's heavy-handed rule of the House means the rift between the parties won't be healed anytime soon. Deborah Potter, CBS News on Capitol Hill.
Some details of George Bush's presidential campaign strategy were revealed today. 2 Republican governors who've been meeting with Bush in Maine say he now plans to part company with President Reagan on a number of domestic issues, among them child care, the homeless, housing, education, and drug education.
What's all this about you selling the Market Street building? My client's still interested in that space.
We accepted Gail's offer this morning.
Hello, Jason.
You could have made a counteroffer.
If you had let me know what was going on, I would have.
But I called your office yesterday. I left you a message.
You left me a message?
Nothing should come between you and your pet. Set the Hearts 2-in-1 collar. The collar that kills fleas and ticks for 5 months. Keeps them off your pet and out of your home. Go ahead. Hug. Snuggle. Tickle him. The Hearts 2-in-1 collar lets you get close to your pet without getting close to fleas and ticks. If you want to hug a happier pet and have peace of mind, get the Hearts 2-in-1 collar.
How can you help your home sell faster? Protect the major appliances. If your real estate company can't do that, then you're not listed with the right real estate company. Because you're not listed with an ERA broker.
Hemorrhoids. They hurt, burn, and swell. And more doctors recommend Anusol to relieve the hurting than all other hemorrhoid medicines combined. Anusol is the word to remember for relief.
Memorial Day services are being held all around the country this weekend. In Memphis, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts paid tribute to soldiers who fought for the American flag. The youngsters honored those brave Americans who died so that they could live in freedom. Holiday weekend is also a time to get out and see the sights around the country, and one thing American tourists are sure to see a lot of these days is foreigners. Lynn Brown reports.
The Golden Gate is red, giant redwoods are green, and the national parks are unbelievable.
But it's not the redwoods or national parks that are bringing foreign tourists to America. They're coming because buying here is so much cheaper than buying at home.
Sure, there's a hell of a lot of influence there.
Almost everything's less expensive if you're coming from abroad.
It's less, much less than before. Yes.
And because America is such a bargain now, the government says the number of foreign travelers is up, way up.
Foreign tourism this year is booming. The statistics for the first quarter of 1988 show a dramatic increase of tourism to the U.S., far in excess of what we had originally forecast.
The Commerce Department is forecasting a 15% increase over the nearly 29 billion visitors who came to this country last year. And that spells health and wealth for many American businesses, especially upscale department stores in New York City, the most popular city for foreign tourists.
Around 25% of the annual volume of business of this store is done with foreign visitors.
They're buying everything from cosmetics to designer fragrances to jewelry. Anything American.
Socks with Mickey Mouse and a glass with Mickey Mouse. That's interesting things for us.
With the yen soaring over the U.S. dollar right now, it's not surprising that Japanese tourists, who contributed $2.1 billion to the American economy last year, are expected to contribute even more in '88. But if the dollar bounces back and buying American is no longer cheap, the challenge will be to keep these foreign tourists from taking their dollars elsewhere. Lynn Brown, CBS News, New York.
And some birds in the news. The California condor, hatched in San Diego a month ago, reached a milestone today. It was transferred from an incubator to an outdoor cage. The chick eats 50 mice a day and now weighs nearly 4 pounds. It's one of only 28 condors left in the world.
Daddy, I want my teddy bear.
I want my Serta.
I want my Serta.
Get comfortable. Get a Serta Perfect Sleeper. It's the only mattress that goes beyond firmness to give you the exclusive Serta surface with layers of Serta comfort. It'll spoil you for sleeping any other way.
I want my Serta.
The Remington Microscreen shaves as close as a blade, or your money back. The first screen shaves incredibly close. The second even closer. Shaves as close as a blade, or your money back. Now, lowest price ever on Remington Microscreen Rechargeable.
If you could taste time, the sun, rain, tradition, this is what it would taste like every time. With a name like Smucker's, it has to be good.
As we reported earlier on this broadcast, the president predicted today that with the Intermediate Range Missile Treaty now agreed to by all concerned, it may be possible to get another treaty before the end of the year, which reduces the superpower arsenals of longer-range missiles. Some who follow arms control, however, are not so sure, among them Jack Mendelson, one-time member of several U.S. arms negotiating teams and now an official of the Arms Control Association. He told us in an interview today that while an agreement is possible, there are still major roadblocks.
I think it's possible, but only barely. The real issues are not those that are in the treaty, like the technical issues on cruise missiles and mobile missiles and things like that. The real issue is the tension between the Star Wars program that the president's pursuing and reductions in offensive weapons that he also wants.
Well, it seems clear that the president himself would like to have a strategic arms agreement, if for nothing else, for his place in history, as it were. Do the Soviets really want one at this time, do you think?
I think the Soviets would very much like to have one, but I think they also realize that everything that they can get this president to agree to, short of signing the treaty, will be useful in future administrations, because they will have gotten a very conservative president to agree to a number of solutions to problems that have been with us for 2 decades. So I think they'd like to have it, but I'm not convinced they're prepared to pay the price of allowing Star Wars to go ahead, if that's the price to get the treaty.
Is Star Wars it? Is that still the stumbling block in your view?
In my view, the stumbling block still remains the tension between the president's vision of testing, developing, and eventually deploying defenses against ballistic missiles on the one hand, and drawing down offensive strategic weapons on the other hand. The Soviets are saying, we're prepared to draw down these weapons, but you must keep within a certain level of constraint that Star Wars program. And until that tension gets resolved, could get resolved by either the president changing his position or the Soviets changing their position. I don't see any likelihood of either of those things happening. So I think that tension is going to continue.
Do you think it is wise to go for an enormous cut, as the president has talked about, 50% cut, rather than doing it on a gradual basis? Is, in fact, that possible, do you think?
10 years ago, 15 years ago, we had a lot fewer weapons, and the sides nonetheless felt that they were able to deter the other side. I think reductions can be taken, and I also think they're not quite as severe as one would think given just the 50% figure.
Thank you, sir. Arms control expert Jack Mendelson. We'll have more from Moscow when we return.
When you buy a new lawnmower, you want to believe that each one will be the last you'll ever have to buy. But in time, it becomes painfully clear that not all lawnmowers are engineered to last. Knowing this, why would you settle for anything less than a Honda? Year after year, the right tool for mowing the lawn.
This may sound strange, but if I hadn't had a heart attack, I wouldn't be here today. I'm doing fine, and I learned something you ought to know. There's a whole lot of proof that a diet low in saturated fats and cholesterol can help keep your heart healthy. Fleischmann's has 0 cholesterol, 0, zip, none. I changed after my heart attack. What are you waiting for?
Fleischmann's. It does your heart good.
Where can you find America's best-selling camcorder outfit with a free $149 telephoto lens? The case, camcorder, and accessories are all yours for just $26 a month. Where? Only at Sears.
Mom, I'm too young to get heartburn.
But you're not too young for Tums. It's rich in calcium, and our doctor said teenagers need extra calcium in their diets.
As much as their moms do?
Yes.
A U.S. team is heading to Moscow this evening to run Soviet bases and confront the Russians with American arms, but the delegation we're talking about has nothing to do with the summit. This group is going to Moscow to play baseball. Barry Peterson reports.
The Blue Jays of Johns Hopkins practicing for a day that's never happened before, when they become the first American team to take on the best the Soviet Union has to offer. They're coming to Moscow to face these chaps, sponsored by a chemical institute. They're learning baseball one swing and a hit at a time, trying to catch on in a hurry. Their role model, the boys of summer in the American big leagues via videotape.
It's my dream to be like American, only American. I prefer American.
The Soviets are learning for a reason. The great American pastime will be an Olympic event in 1992, and that's the sort of World Series the Soviets want into. It helps to start young. There are only 2 Little League teams in all of Moscow, and the hardest part may be just getting the field ready. Their guiding light is American businessman Rick Spooner.
They play here in the snow and the sleet and the cold. So to play in a little mud today, no problem.
The dads come to watch, but it's sort of a head-scratching event. A game that doesn't quite make sense yet, even to the boys.
They know what a curveball is. Not too many of them can throw it yet.
Chin down.
Or catch. That lesson, part of a Florida spring training visit for 2 Soviet coaches. It may all still be a mystery to the Soviets, but in this competition, they have no intention of striking out. Barry Peterson, CBS News, Moscow.
And that's the news. We'll have more from Moscow tomorrow as Dan Rather, Charles Kuralt, and the CBS News team cover President Reagan's arrival in the Soviet capital. The coverage begins on Sunday morning. I'm Bob Schieffer, CBS News in New York. Good night.
Don't be late.
Beat this date.
Send this in.
And you may win
$10 million
from American Family Publishers.
Hey, you're Ed McMahon.
And these are American Family's winners of millions. David won $10 million.
Your folks may be next.
Gee.
Tell them to enter the sweepstakes from American Family Publishers. The sweepstakes with my picture by June 30th. Got it?
You bet.
You be sure to enter, too.
Up to $2,000 cash back from Subaru is worth more than the same money from anyone else. It's worth more because Subaru builds a rugged, reliable wagon that's the best-selling import wagon in America. It's worth more because Subaru's XT6 has the same engine design found in a Ferrari or a Porsche. It's worth more because the Subaru Justy is the lowest-priced four-wheel drive passenger car in America. Up to $2,000 cash back on a Subaru is worth more because it's on a Subaru.
Второй бросок, отбит в поле.
Conference final. We will rock you.
This